Okay, so now in this video, we will work on two problems. One will be fairly easy. The next one will have fractions, just so that, we can cover that as well. And we're going to start with an equation, and we're going to identify all the parts, all the vocabulary parts. We're going to identify the vertex. Oh. We're going to identify the vertex. We're going to identify the axis of symmetry. We're going to identify the range. We're going to identify the domain. We're going to identify if the vertex is a maximum or a minimum. We're going to identify the y-intercept, and we're going to identify the x-intercepts. Okay, I believe that's everything. We'll find out. Okay, okay. All right, so first things first is the vertex. And remember, to find the vertex, it is negative b over 2a. And when we have a quadratic formula, remember, standard form says this is a, this is b, and this is c. So if vertex is negative b over 2a, then that would be a negative 4. Okay, just because it's asking for a negative b doesn't mean that you ignore this b, this negative. You put the negative, then you put what the b value is. And in this case, it's a negative. So you're going to have two negatives there. Over 2 times a, which is 1. Simplify that, and you get 4 over 2, which equals 2. Okay, so the x value of my vertex is 2. Now, in order to find the y value, I'm supposed to find it at f of negative b over 2a. And the way I do that is whatever my value is for x, I substitute it into the function. So 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 12, which is 4 minus 8 minus 12, which is negative 16. Okay, so then my y value of my vertex is negative 16. Boom, done, son. Thought I was going to say daughter, huh? But daughter doesn't rhyme with son. Uh, I was going to try and rhyme, but that doesn't. I, mm. All right, so then in order to find the axis, remember it's x equals negative b over 2a, or the x value of the vertex. So x equals 2. Love it. I'm going to skip x-intercept because it takes a little work. But range, remember we said is either one of these two babies of f of negative b over 2a. We did that work already. That's the y value of the vertex, which makes sense because range uses y. So y, and we have negative 16. Now the question is, I don't see a visual of this graph, so I don't know if it's max or min. Oh, but I do. See, the coefficient of A tells me which direction this graph is going. Because A is positive, this graph is pointing up. And if it's pointing up, the vertex is at the bottom, which means it's a minimum. But if it is pointing up, all the values of y will be greater than or equal to the vertex is y. So I would use greater than or equal to symbol. Domain, all real numbers. Yeah. And again, now I see my visual. A positive value means it's going up. That means everything is above this low number here. That means that this graph has a minimum vertex. To find my y-intercept, I'm supposed to do uh, the function when x equals 0, which makes sense. So to do that, I would say 0 squared minus 4 times 0 minus 12, which equals dun, 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 negative 12. So that means then if I look at it in standard form, remember it has to be in standard form, then my y value would be negative 12. Or excuse me, the c, okay? Otherwise, just substitute 0 in and solve and you'll get it. So my y-intercept then is 0 comma negative 12. Notice I wrote it as a ordered pair because that is what the y-intercept is.
Good morning, Rangers, and please count on this interruption
Tag
for
on it.
today's morning announcements. Students who would like to have more information on area colleges are invited to attend a special college fair at Fort Bend County
Womp
Libraries,
womp.
First Colony Branch, on Wednesday, that's today,
Although that is
from
important.
6:30 to 8 p.m. Representatives from colleges and universities will be on hand to share information
I'm
about
going
their
there.
programs with current high school students and their parents or guardians. Schools that will be represented include Baylor University, Houston Baptist University, Sam Houston State, Texas Tech, Texas Women's University, the University of Houston, the University of North Texas, and the University of Oklahoma. The program is free. Come by the College and Career Room if you have any questions. Attention seniors,
Oh.
Texas State Technical College will be in the College and Career Room on Monday, March 3rd during all three lunches. There will be four admissions counselors
So
here to help you fill out your application to
I want to keep
TSCC.
going.
Graduation is about 90 days away, so make sure you have a plan. Students, we would like to remind you about the International Festival. It is tomorrow, Thursday, February 28th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. There will be fun, food, games, entertainment, and giveaways that you do not want to miss. We hope to see you there. Today's quote of the day. Oh yes, the past can hurt, but either you run from it or learn from it. Rafiki the Lion King. Remember, your character counts.
All right. So I guess I'll just write a little message here. Start here. Unless someone can figure out how to edit that for me, because I don't know. And I'm not about to redo this whole video. I say that, but watch I do. All right. So in order to find my x-intercepts, I have to set my function to 0. So x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. And this brings us back to factoring. My two binomials would be x times x. And then I have to factor my 12, which I'm going to go with 6 and 2, minus 6 plus 2. And that gives me negative 6 times positive 2, which is negative 12, which works. And then minus 6 plus 2 gives me negative 4. I set each binomial to 0. And now I know my x-intercepts, which are 6 and negative 2. Okay? So now why did I do all of that? Because this allows me to graph the function. As it slowly but surely runs away from me. Okay, so let's start with a little graph here, a little coordinate plane. And I always like to begin with my vertex. And my vertex is 2, negative 16. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 15, to negative 16. Yes. Then I plot my zeros, which are 6 and negative 2. Notice that those were solutions at first. Now they're zeros, 6 and negative 2. So 1, 2 is negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is here. And that makes sense because if this is my vertex, 1, 2, 3, 4 positions gave me this solution. Here's my vertex, 1, 2, 3, 4 on that side gave me my other solution. This is looking like some symmetry to me. Ow. I don't know why I do that. I will probably not try to stop. Then I'll do my y-intercept of 0, negative 12. Where did they go? How did it just disappear? So 0, that's 10, 11, -12. And you can kind of start to see the parabola taking shape. However, I need one more point on this side to make it even. And if you remember, the axis of symmetry goes through here. And if that's the case, every point on this side has to appear on this side the same distance. So this point is 1, 2 spaces away. So I can do another point 1, 2 spaces away. And then look at that. Got me a nice little parabola here. And then when you draw it, kind of make it like a slight curve. Don't do it as a V. Otherwise, you'll go into algebra 2 with your absolute value functions. All right, moving on. Let's do another one. We have x squared plus 3x plus 2. This allows us to kind of do some fractions. It looks very, very easy, like a simple and kind problem, but it's it is. But kids who don't like um, fractions are like, what is this? Like Daniel. All right, so first thing first, I want my vertex, negative b over 2a. If this is a, this is b, this is c. And negative b is -3 over 2 times 1. My b was positive, but that negative left it alone, so I only have 1, which gives me -3 over 2. So that's my x value right now. Now, in order to find my y value, I have to substitute that value into my function, and I get 3 halves, oops, excuse me, -3 halves, plus 3 times -3 over 2 plus 2. And when I'm when I'm raising a fraction to an exponent, just like if there were variables, everything on the top and everything on the bottom gets it, so it happens here. -3 times -3 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4 plus. Now, when I multiply a whole number and a fraction, everything needs to be a fraction. So 3 times -3 is -9. 1 times 2 is 2 plus, and we'll leave that as a whole number for now. In order to combine fractions, I need common denominators. So the least common multiple of these two would be 4. If I multiply this by 2 over 2, I'll get 9 fourths plus a -18 over 4 plus 2. That gives me -9 fourths plus 2. And then I need my 2 to become fourths, so I'll multiply that by 4 over 4, which means this needs to be a 1. And that will give me -9 over 4 plus 8 over 4, which equals -1 over 4. So honestly, if you're comfortable with fractions, you should be fine. I just wanted to at least acknowledge that fractions are real numbers too, okay? And they will pop up. And I'm petty, so I'm going to make sure you work on this skill. So here's my vertex. Now I'm ready for my axis of symmetry. And the axis of symmetry is just the x value so of the vertex. So x equals -3 halves. Then I can do range because range is really easy after this, and that is y and the -1/4 or the y value of the vertex. I have a positive a, so because my a is positive, that means everything is going above or equal to the y value. Since I'm at range, let's go ahead and do domain. And remember, this is going to be all real numbers for now. Then now that I've done that, let's go into y-intercept because personally I think that's really easy too. And that's where you put 0 for your x. So that would be 0 squared plus 3 times 0 plus 2, which equals 0 plus 0 plus 2, which is 2. So that means my y-intercept is 0, 2. Okay, 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 okay. Um, Next up would be my zeros. And I will do that by setting my function equal to 0. So let's take a gander up here. And we have x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Break that on down there. Yes, indeedy. Ow. I don't know. I don't know why I say it, but I love saying it. I think that's why I say it. Plus 2 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. Solve for x using my inverses here. Boom. Now I got all the pieces, man. This is beautiful. I'm rest, not ready, but rest, which is total slang and horrible language. Don't tell your English teachers. I'm ready. You can tell them that. To graph. Let me get my X and Y axis going on here. First thing first, I start with my vertex, which is negative 3 halves and negative 1/4. Negative 3 halves is really negative 1 1/2. So that's about right here. And if I have a 1 here, it's probably like right here. Then I go to my solutions, my zeros, which is negative 2 and negative 1. Okay. And then that makes sense because my graph is supposed to be going up, and right now that seems to be what's happening. So next up, I will graph my y-intercept. My x-axis goes right through here at the negative 1/2 mark. And because this is 1 1 1 1/2 spaces away from the vertex, I can plot another one 1 1/2 spaces away. And there we go. All right. And there you have it, folks. We have just constructed. Do well, be great.